The boardroom was full of important people. Suits, ties, and shiny shoes filled the long glass table. Everyone spoke in quick voices, discussing profits, trade deals, and the new alien visitors arriving that day. The walls of the room were tall and white, with screens showing numbers and charts. Everything looked sharp, rich, and perfect. But in the corner, nobody noticed the man with the mop. He was not in a suit. His shirt was faded blue, his shoes old and scratched. He pushed the mop quietly across the polished floor, head down, moving like he was invisible. He was the janitor, a single dad. Every day he worked late at night and early in the morning, just to give his little girl food and school books. To the executives, he was nothing. Just background noise, but today was different. As he worked, his ears picked up the whispers of the executives. They were nervous. Aliens were coming for a business deal. This was no ordinary meeting. It was the first time these beings would sit across from humans to speak about trade and technology. The janitor felt his chest tighten. He had heard of these aliens before. He had seen them once many years ago, but no one knew that. He had kept that secret all his life. He dipped his mop in the bucket again, but his hand shook. A memory flickered in his mind. A broken alien ship in the forest glowing in the night and a wounded figure crawling out. A boy's heart beating fast as he reached to help. Strange words whispered to him like music. He never told anyone, not even his daughter. The doors of the boardroom opened with a heavy sound. Everyone stood up at once. The air changed. The aliens entered. They were tall, with silver skin that glowed faintly under the lights. Their eyes were dark, endless pools, and their clothes shimmered like woven stars. They walked slowly, their presence heavy, like they carried the weight of worlds behind them. The executives forced smiles, bowing politely, but their hands trembled. The janitor froze. His mop stopped moving. His breath caught in his throat. He understood the first word the alien spoke. It was impossible. The executives didn't notice, but to him every sound was clear, sharp, and familiar. The alien leader spoke again, his voice deep and strange, echoing in the room. The executives looked around in panic, not knowing what was said. The janitor's lips moved without thought. He whispered the meaning under his breath. He knew exactly what the alien had said. "Why do you hide your true voice?" the alien leader had asked. No one else understood. Not a single executive. They shuffled papers, glanced at translators that failed to load, and whispered nervously to each other. But the janitor knew. His heart raced. He wanted to stay silent, to remain invisible, but the words burned inside him. His mind went back to that night in the forest, when the dying alien had touched his hand and spoken to him, teaching him a secret language that no human knew. He looked at the executives. They were powerful, rich, respected. Yet here they were, helpless, confused, and weak in front of the aliens. And he was just a janitor, a single dad. Nobody, but he knew the truth. The alien leader repeated the question louder this time. The room went tense. One executive laughed awkwardly, pretending everything was fine. Another tried to signal the tech team to fix the translator, but the aliens grew restless, their eyes narrowing. The janitor's hand tightened around the mop handle. Sweat rolled down his neck. His legs felt heavy, but his mind was clear. He could not stop hearing the meaning of every alien word. He could not stop understanding. And then it happened. The alien leader turned his dark eyes directly on him, not on the executives, not on the CEO, not on the translator machine, on the janitor. The janitor's heart stopped. His secret was no longer safe. The alien spoke a third time, and this time it was like thunder. The executives flinched. The janitor whispered again without thinking, "Who among you carries the old bond?" The words slipped from his mouth. Quiet, soft but clear, and the room froze. The nearest executive turned slowly, his mouth open in shock. What did you just say?" The janitor's face turned pale. He had spoken too loudly. Everyone had heard. The aliens stared at him, their dark eyes wide. The janitor dropped his mop. It clattered against the floor. The boardroom was silent, and in that silence everyone realized the truth. The janitor, the man they had ignored for years, had just answered in perfect alien speech. The sound of the mop hitting the floor echoed like a gunshot in the silent boardroom. Every executive froze. Their expensive pens hung mid-air, their mouths half open. The janitor's words still lingered in the air, impossible and sharp, perfect alien speech, flowing from a man who was supposed to be nothing more than a cleaner. The alien leader tilted his head slowly, his dark, endless eyes fixed on the janitor. The room seemed to shrink. The shimmering figures of the aliens stood taller now, their strange garments glowing brighter. The leader raised one long silver hand, pointing, not at the executives, not at the CEO, but at the janitor. "You," the alien said in his language. Gasps filled the room. Everyone had heard the sound, strange and unearthly, but none of them understood the meaning. None of them except the janitor. The word struck him like lightning. He knew it was not just a word. It was a command. "You," it meant. The janitor's knees trembled. He wanted to vanish, to melt into the floor, to return to the shadows where he belonged. But it was too late. All eyes were on him now. "What is happening?" stammered the CEO, a tall man with gray hair and a cold smile. "Who is this janitor? What did he just say?" His voice cracked with fear, not authority. The janitor said nothing. His lips trembled. He could feel his heart pounding against his ribs. Sweat dripped down his forehead. The alien leader spoke again, his voice deep like stone grinding against stone. The janitor understood every word. "Why do you let the liars speak for you?" The janitor's throat went dry. He looked around the room. The executives shuffled in their seats, angry and scared. None of them understood. The translation devices still showed errors, flashing red warnings. They were blind, deaf to the truth. The janitor's secret burned inside him. He wanted to keep quiet. He wanted to remain nothing. But the aliens, they knew. Before he could stop himself, the words slipped out of his mouth again, clear and sharp in the alien tongue. The executives gasped louder this time. One woman at the table stood up so fast her chair toppled behind her. He's speaking to them. He knows their language." The alien leader's eyes softened. He stepped closer, each movement slow and powerful like a predator circling its prey. But there was no anger in him, only recognition. "You are the one," the leader said in his strange voice. The janitor's legs nearly gave out. He gripped the edge of the mop bucket to stay standing. The CEO slammed his fist on the table. "This is impossible," he barked. "He's a janitor. He cleans floors. He doesn't belong here." But no one listened to him anymore. The aliens ignored the executives completely. All their attention was locked on the trembling man in the corner, the single dad who had worked in silence for years. The janitor swallowed hard. His hands shook, but he forced himself to stand straight. His voice came out soft, weak at first, but the words were alien, ancient, perfect. "Why? Why are you speaking to me?" he asked. The alien leader's eyes glowed faintly. "Because you carry the bond," he answered. The bond of the old ones. The executives looked back and forth, helpless. They didn't know what was being said, but they could see the truth in the aliens' faces. The CEO tried again. "Translate. Somebody translate what's happening." His voice broke like glass. The janitor turned to him slowly, his face pale but his eyes steady. He spoke in human words this time, he said. "They don't trust you. They trust me." The words struck the room like thunder. The CEO's face went red. "What kind of game is this?" He jabbed a finger at the janitor, his voice shaking with rage. "You're lying." But deep down, everyone knew it was no lie. The alien leader stepped forward again. He raised his silver hand and placed it over his chest, bowing slightly. Not to the CEO, not to the board, but to the janitor. Every executive gasped. The janitor's world spun. He thought of his daughter, waiting at home with her worn-out backpack and her hopeful smile. He thought of the quiet nights when he told her stories to make her forget the hunger in her stomach. He thought of all the times he had been invisible, and now, this. The aliens respected him. The powerful feared him. He was no longer invisible. The janitor's voice was unsteady, but he spoke again, the alien words flowing from him like he had been born with them. "What bond do you speak of?" he asked. The alien leader's glowing eyes narrowed. His voice was low, heavy with meaning. "The bond of the first contact," he said. "The one who helped us in the dark. The one who gave us hope when we fell. That bond lives in you." The janitor's breath caught. Memories of that night in the forest returned. An injured alien whispering strange words, a hand reaching out. A boy listening when no one else dared. The secret he had hidden all his life was no longer his alone. The executives were stunned, silent, terrified. And in the middle of it all, the janitor, once invisible, stood as the only bridge between two worlds. The boardroom was still frozen in silence. Executives sat stiff in their chairs, faces pale, eyes darting from the aliens to the janitor. The CEO's knuckles were white as he gripped the table, his lips pressed tight with anger. But no one spoke. No one dared. The janitor's breath came uneven. His heart hammered in his chest. He wanted to step back, to hide, to say nothing more. But the alien leader's gaze held him like chains. Those endless dark eyes seemed to see everything, not just the man he was now, but the boy he had once been. And the memories came flooding back. He had been only 12 when it happened, a boy living in a small town on the edge of nowhere, poor but curious. One night the sky had cracked open with fire. He had run into the forest, his legs carrying him toward the strange light. Branches tore at his skin. The smell of burning metal filled the air, and then he saw it. A ship, broken, smoking, glowing against the night. And from the wreckage, a figure crawled. The boy had frozen, too scared to move. The figure was tall, silver-skinned, its body glowing faintly like moonlight. It was hurt, bleeding something that looked like light instead of blood. The boy's fear clashed with something else inside him. Pity. He saw not a monster, but a wounded soul. The alien had raised a trembling hand and spoken. Strange sounds, strange words. The boy didn't understand at first, but the alien's eyes were kind, desperate. Slowly, gently, the boy had stepped closer. He had offered water from his small canteen, his hands shaking as he lifted it. The alien drank, and then it began. In a voice soft and fading, the alien repeated words, pointing at objects, pointing at the boy. A rock. A tree. A star in the sky. And the boy, curious and brave, copied the sounds. Again and again, until the alien smiled weakly. The boy didn't know it then, but he was being taught. For 3 nights, the boy returned to the forest carrying food and water. No one else knew. His parents never found out. His friends would never have believed him. Each time, the alien whispered more words, showing him gestures, sounds, meanings. And on the last night, the alien had pressed its glowing hand against the boy's chest. Its voice trembled, weak, but the words were clear. You, bond, human, future. Then the light faded from its body. The ship hummed, repaired itself, and vanished into the stars. The boy never forgot. Now standing in the boardroom as a grown man, mop at his feet, those memories burned in his mind. The janitor closed his eyes for a moment. He could almost feel that glowing hand on his chest again. He opened them, and the alien leader was still staring at him as if he too remembered. The janitor spoke softly, his voice unsteady but clear. I met one of you, long ago. Gasps filled the boardroom. Executives leaned forward, eyes wide. The CEO slammed his hand down again. Lies! Ridiculous lies! He shouted, but his voice shook with doubt. The alien leader's face softened and he nodded slowly. The bond, he said. Yes, it was you. The janitor swallowed hard. I was just a boy. He was injured. I helped him. He taught me words. Only a little. Enough. The executives erupted in whispers, their voices sharp with fear and greed. If this is true, one muttered, then he is valuable. Another hissed, too valuable. Dangerous. The janitor ignored them. His eyes were locked on the alien leader, who stepped closer, his presence heavy and powerful. You kept the secret, the alien said. Why? The janitor lowered his head. His voice was almost a whisper. Because no one would have believed me. Because I just wanted to live quietly. I had my daughter to think about. The alien leader tilted his head. A daughter? At the mention of her, the janitor's chest tightened. His little girl was his world, the reason he mopped floors, the reason he stayed invisible. Everything he did was for her. The alien leader's eyes glowed faintly. Then you understand duty. You understand sacrifice. The janitor said nothing, but inside, he felt torn apart. He wanted to remain nothing, a ghost in the background, but fate had dragged him here into the light. The CEO finally stood, his voice desperate. Enough of this nonsense, he's a janitor. He's no diplomat, no leader, he's nothing. The alien leader turned his gaze on the CEO and the room went cold. His voice dropped like thunder. You are nothing, he is the bond. The executives gasped again, some shrinking in their seats. The janitor's legs trembled, his heart racing. He had carried this secret all his life, buried deep. Now it was exposed for all to see. The room felt smaller, tighter. The eyes of the powerful were burning into him, not with respect, but with hunger and fear. He wished he could run. But it was too late. The aliens had chosen him, and the humans would never see him as invisible again. The boardroom had turned into a storm. The executives were no longer whispering, they were shouting, pointing, arguing with each other like cornered animals. The janitor stood frozen near his mop bucket, wishing he could disappear into the floor. But it was impossible now. The aliens had spoken and the truth could not be undone. The CEO's voice rose above the noise. We need to test him. If this man truly understands their language, let him prove it. His cold eyes locked on the janitor. Speak again. Translate for us. Show us what you know. The janitor's throat went dry. He looked at the aliens, then at the executives. His legs trembled. He didn't want this. He had never asked for this. But the alien leader's gaze was steady, calm, as if waiting for him to step forward. One of the other aliens began speaking in their tongue, a long string of deep sounds and strange tones that filled the air like music. The executives leaned forward, their translator devices flashing useless errors. The janitor closed his eyes for a second, forcing his fear down. The words slid into his mind, familiar, alive. Slowly, carefully, he spoke in human language. He says, You sit in fine chairs, but your hearts are small. You claim power, but you hide behind machines. The room went silent. The executive stared at him in shock. The alien who had spoken tilted his head and gave the faintest smile. The CEO's jaw tightened. Coincidence, he muttered. It could be luck. He turned sharply. More. Test him more. Another alien stepped forward and spoke. The words were faster this time, sharper, like blades clashing. The janitor felt his chest tighten, but he understood. He answered in a steady voice. He says, The earth is loud, full of false voices. He asks, Which voice is true? The alien nodded. The executives exchanged nervous glances. One woman in a red suit leaned closer to the CEO. It's real. He understands them. Her voice was thin with fear, but the CEO refused to give in. His face burned red with anger. Again, he barked. The alien leader spoke this time. His voice was deeper, heavier, every word carrying weight. The janitor listened carefully, the words wrapped around him like a chain. He swallowed and translated. He says, There is only one among you who carries the old bond, and he knows it is me. Gasps filled the boardroom again. The janitor's hands trembled, but he forced himself to stand straight. He could not hide anymore. The truth was too large. The executive stared at him with different eyes now. No longer was he invisible. No longer was he just a janitor. He was something else. To some, that made him valuable. To others, dangerous. The CEO leaned forward, his eyes sharp and cruel. Then you will work for us, he said. You will translate, you will sit at this table, and you will do as we command. The janitor's heart sank. He looked down at his worn shoes, his calloused hands. He thought of his daughter waiting at home with her school books and her hungry smile. He had always worked to protect her. And now, this. The alien leader shook his head slowly. His deep voice rumbled. No, he does not work for you. He is not your servant. The CEO's face twisted with rage. He slammed his fist on the table. This is our world, our company. He belongs to us. The alien's eyes darkened, glowing faintly. He belongs to no one. He is the bond. You are nothing without him. The executives recoiled at the words. Fear flickered in their eyes, but greed flickered too. They began to argue again. Some whispered about opportunities, about money, about power. Others hissed about danger, about risk, about control. The room filled with tension like a stretched rope ready to snap, and in the middle of it stood the janitor, the man who had once been invisible. He felt their eyes burning into him, weighing him, measuring him. He knew the truth. They didn't see him as a person. They saw him as a tool, a weapon, a door to power they could not reach alone. The janitor's stomach churned. He wanted to run, to escape, to hold his daughter and never come back. But he could feel the pull of destiny tightening around him like a noose. The alien leader looked at him with calm certainty. The test is over, he said in his strange tongue. The janitor translated softly, his voice shaking. He says, I have proven enough. The aliens nodded in agreement, but the humans were restless, greedy, desperate, and the janitor understood something in that moment. It was not the aliens he had to fear. It was the humans sitting in that room. The boardroom light seemed brighter now, burning against every nervous face at the table. The executives leaned forward, whispering fiercely to one another. The janitor stood near his mop bucket, his back stiff, his hands trembling. He wanted to sink into the floor, but the alien's eyes held him in place. The alien leader raised his hand. The room fell quiet at once. His deep voice rolled through the air like thunder. The janitor understood every word, and the meaning struck him cold. The alien had made a demand. They say, the janitor's voice shook as he translated, they will not trade with this company. They will not speak with the board. They will only deal with me. The room erupted in chaos. Executives shouted, their voices sharp and panicked. What? Impossible. This is a trick. The CEO's face turned red with fury. He slammed both fists onto the table. This is absurd. You can't be serious. A janitor cannot represent us. He has no power here. But the aliens ignored him. Their dark eyes remained on the janitor. The janitor's knees nearly gave out. He shook his head quickly. No, this is wrong. I can't, I'm not anyone important. I clean floors. I fix broken lights. I can't make deals for Earth. The alien leader stepped closer. His silver skin glowed faintly, and his towering figure made the janitor feel small like a child again. But the alien's voice was steady, calm, certain. You understand us. You helped one of us when no one else did. You are Bond. We will only trust you. The janitor's chest tightened. He thought of his daughter. He thought of her little shoes by the door, her laughter when he told her bedtime stories. All he wanted was to keep her safe, to live quietly, to stay unseen. He had no wish for power, no hunger for money. He just wanted to be her father. But now the weight of the galaxy pressed against his shoulders. The CEO barked again, trying to regain control. You can't trust him. He's a nobody. He doesn't understand politics, business, economics. His voice cracked with desperation. The alien leader turned his gaze on the CEO, his voice sharp as a blade. The janitor translated in a low, trembling tone. He says, we have seen your greed. We have seen your lies. You only seek to control. We will not deal with liars. The board fell silent. The words hit like a hammer. The janitor lowered his head. He could feel the hatred of the executives burning into him. They didn't see him as a man anymore. They saw him as the key to everything they wanted, a key they could not control. One woman in a gray suit spoke carefully, her voice trembling. If the aliens want him, perhaps we should let him act as a translator. At least temporarily. Another executive snapped back. And hand over all our power? Never. The arguments grew louder again, but the janitor barely heard them. His mind spun. He wanted to say no, to step away. But the aliens had chosen him. And deep down, a quiet voice whispered that maybe he had no choice. The alien leader's eyes softened as he looked at the janitor. His voice was deep, almost gentle now. Do not fear. We will guide you. You are not alone. The janitor translated the words. His voice breaking, he looked at the executives, their expensive suits, their trembling hands. He looked at the aliens, tall and calm, unshaken by human anger, and then he thought of his daughter again, how she would look at him if she knew. His throat tightened. I can't promise anything, he whispered. The alien leader nodded once. The bond is enough. The CEO shot up from his chair. His voice was sharp with rage. This ends now. I will not let a janitor take my seat at this table. But even as he spoke, everyone knew the truth. The aliens didn't care about the CEO. They didn't care about the board. Their eyes, their words, their trust all belonged to the janitor. And the janitor knew it too. He wasn't just a cleaner anymore. He wasn't invisible. He was the bridge between two worlds. But as the weight of that truth sank deeper into him, a chill passed through his chest. Because he also knew something else. The humans in that room would never forgive him. The boardroom emptied slowly after the meeting, but the tension clung to the air like smoke. The executives filed out with stiff faces and cold eyes, avoiding the janitor as if he were a shadow that frightened them. The aliens left as well, calm and silent, their silver forms fading down the long corridor. Only the janitor remained. He stood alone beside his mop bucket, staring at the polished floor that now reflected his troubled face. His hands trembled. His chest ached with fear. He whispered to himself, I didn't ask for this. But fate had asked for him. When he finally stepped outside the tall glass building, the night air hit his face. The city lights glowed around him, and cars hummed in the distance. He walked slowly home, carrying his old jacket tight around his body. Every step felt heavy. At his small apartment, the lights were still on. Through the thin curtains, he saw his daughter sitting at the kitchen table, her head bent over her school books. Her long hair fell in messy strands, and her pencil tapped against the page. She looked up when the door creaked open, and her tired eyes lit up with joy. Daddy, she said, running to hug him. He smiled weakly, kneeling to hold her. For a moment, the world melted away. Her arms around his neck, her small voice in his ear. These were the only things that mattered. Did you eat? He asked gently. She nodded. I saved you some soup. He kissed her forehead, trying to hide the storm inside him. She didn't know what had happened in that boardroom. She didn't know that her father, the man who mopped floors, was now the center of something far greater and far more dangerous. But others knew, far away. In a dark corner of the company's tower, the executives met in secret. The CEO sat at the head of the table, his face twisted with rage. We cannot let this continue, he growled. The aliens trust him, not us. If he keeps this role, we lose everything. A woman in a red suit leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. Then we remove him, quietly, permanently. The room fell silent. No one argued. The CEO's cold smile returned. Good. But he has a daughter, doesn't he? A weak spot. Perhaps we should remind him where his loyalties must lie. Back in the small apartment, the janitor sat at the table with his daughter. She smiled as she told him about her day, about the teacher who praised her work, about the playground games she had played. Her voice was bright, full of life, and he listened carefully, soaking in every word. But behind his tired smile, his mind raced. The aliens had chosen him. The executives hated him. And in between it all was his daughter, the one he loved more than life itself. He couldn't let harm come to her. Later that night, after she had gone to bed, he sat in the darkness of the living room. He remembered the alien leader's words, "You are not alone." He wanted to believe them. But the truth was he felt very alone. A sound outside made him freeze. A shadow moved past the window. His heart leapt. Slowly he stepped closer, pulling the curtain back just enough to see. A black car was parked across the street. The windows were tinted, the engine off, but he could feel the weight of eyes watching him. He closed the curtain quickly, his breath sharp. Fear wrapped around him like chains. They were watching. The next morning, as he walked his daughter to school, he noticed the same car following at a distance. He held her hand tighter, forcing a smile when she looked up at him. But inside, panic clawed at his chest. The threat was real. At the company, the executives greeted him with false smiles. They spoke sweetly in front of the aliens, pretending to accept his new role, but he could see it in their eyes. Hatred, envy, greed. They were waiting for the moment he slipped. That night he found another note slipped under his apartment door. The paper was thin, the handwriting sharp and cold. Choose wisely. Work for us, or lose everything. His hand shook as he crumpled the note. He looked at the closed door of his daughter's bedroom. Her soft breathing drifted through the thin walls. Tears filled his eyes. He had survived years of hardship, loneliness, invisibility. But now the threat wasn't against him. It was against her, and for the first time the janitor felt the true danger of the path he was on. The aliens trusted him. The humans feared him, and the people in power were ready to break him, even if it meant breaking his family. The janitor sat in the dark, the note burning in his fist. He knew the truth now. It wasn't just about him anymore, it was war. The morning of the final meeting came heavy with silence. Clouds hung low over the city, and the tall glass tower of the company seemed colder than ever. The janitor walked slowly toward it, his worn shoes tapping against the pavement. Beside him, his daughter clung to his hand. Her eyes were worried, though she tried to smile. "Daddy," she whispered. "Do you have to go?" He knelt down, brushing her hair back gently. "Yes," he said softly. "But I promise, no matter what happens, I'll protect you." She nodded, her small fingers squeezing his hand. He sent her with a trusted neighbor, his heart aching as she walked away. Then he turned toward the building, knowing this day would decide everything. Inside the boardroom, the tension was thicker than ever. The executives sat stiff and pale, their faces masks of anger and fear. The CEO glared at the janitor with eyes that promised destruction. The aliens stood tall at the far end of the table, calm and unshaken, their silver skin glowing faintly under the lights. The alien leader raised his hand, and silence filled the room. His voice rolled like thunder, deep and heavy with meaning. The janitor listened carefully, his heart pounding. Then he translated for the humans. He says, "This is the moment. Today the truth will be spoken. Today a choice must be made between greed and trust, between lies and bond." The executives shifted uncomfortably. The CEO sneered. "This is ridiculous. We are the rightful leaders here. Not some janitor who learned a few words from a dying alien." But the alien leader's dark eyes never left the janitor. He spoke again, slower this time. The janitor's voice shook as he translated. He says there is a prophecy. Long ago, one of their kind said, "A human will come carrying the old bond. He will be the bridge between two worlds. Without him, peace will fail. With him, a future can begin." The room gasped. The janitor's breath caught. His mind went back to that night in the forest. The injured alien pressing a glowing hand to his chest, whispering strange words. He had thought they were only memories, but now he realized they had been something more, the beginning of destiny. The CEO slammed his hand on the table. "Prophecies, lies. You are being tricked. He is nothing but a cleaner." The alien leader's voice turned sharp, cutting through the air. The janitor translated softly. He says, "You are the liar. You are the trickster. You fear him because he cannot be controlled." The CEO's face twisted with rage. He stood suddenly, pointing at the janitor. "Enough, guards, remove him!" But no guards came. The aliens had filled the room with their heavy presence, and no human dared to move against them. The janitor stood frozen, his chest tight. He had never wanted power. He had never wanted attention. He only wanted to live quietly with his daughter. But now the eyes of both humans and aliens were on him, waiting for his words. His hands trembled. His voice was low at first, but it grew steadier with each breath. "I am not a leader. I am not rich or powerful. I'm just a man who wanted to give his daughter a better life. But I know this, I will not lie. I will not use greed. I will not trade trust for money." The aliens listened, their eyes glowing faintly. The executives shifted in anger and fear. The janitor lifted his head higher. "You want me to choose? Then I choose honesty. I choose trust. I choose peace." The alien leader bowed his head slightly. His voice was calm but full of strength. The janitor translated. He says, "The bond is fulfilled. The bridge has been made." The aliens placed their hands over their chests, bowing to the janitor. The boardroom filled with gasps. The executives looked helpless, their power slipping away like sand through their fingers. The CEO's face burned red. He shouted, "This isn't over. You'll regret this." But no one listened to him anymore. The aliens turned away from the board, their focus only on the janitor. The janitor stood quietly, his heart heavy but clear. He thought of his daughter waiting at home. He thought of the promise he had made to protect her. And he realized something. This was not just about him. It was about the future she would live in. For years he had been invisible, ignored, forgotten. But now he was something else. Not a janitor. Not just a father. He was the bond. And as the boardroom fell into silence with humans and aliens staring at him, the janitor spoke one last line, simple but unshakable. We build the future together. Or not at all. The room was still. The aliens bowed. The executives trembled. And the galaxy listened.